Your team is screaming at you to lead change differently.
How many times I just wanted to scream?
And today, we're going to get into exactly the feedback that they want you to hear. My name is Emma Roloff, and thanks for joining me for this episode of Leading Change. Typically, in these Change in the Wild episodes, I look at headlines and news in the technology space and bring that back to how it relates to digital transformation, change management, leadership, and emerging technologies. But today, instead of looking at those headlines, we're going to dive deep into the comment section on a recent video that I posted over on TikTok. If you're enjoying our content, consider subscribing to our channel, giving this video a like, and dropping a comment. We personally respond to every comment that we get because we enjoy having a conversation with you. About once a year, I make an incredibly pointed video asking my audience if they've been through some sort of technology implementation, process change, or really any sort of large change within their organization. What feedback would they give to the executive leadership, unfiltered, that they think they need to hear?
So come on, speak up.
And when I do this, the comment section does not disappoint. Last year, when I made this video, I had enough feedback and specific comments that kind of fell into 4 categories that I was able to create my 4P framework for how leaders should be putting together a vision that will inspire people to follow them and actually create change within their organization. So in that comment section, I heard from people that they're looking for a true purpose and vision behind a change, that they want people to be engaged and involved early in the process if they're going to be impacted by the change, that leaders need to do a better job of actually outlining what the process of change is going to look like. What is going to change when and how. And then finally, that they are looking for leaders to stand up and participate as a part of the change. And in their initial vision and communication strategy, they need to identify exactly what they as a leader are going to do to make this vision come to fruition. Now, the comments on this video this year were not necessarily widely straying from that, but there were 5 big trends that I saw that tie into this idea of visioning. But these are the 5 things that your team wants you to know about leading change and being more effective with it. So first on the list, matching up pretty strongly with what I saw last year, was this outcry for engagement from the people that are going to be impacted by the change and involving them as early in the process as possible. Where this differs a little from what I heard last year was last year people were like, hey, involve us, let us know what's going on, communicate with us. What I've seen in the comment section this year, specifically tied to this people side of things and involving the people that are doing the job, was involve us in process discussions. Don't sign a software contract without talking to the people that actually do the job. And all of these things surrounding leaders making technology decisions without having any sort of feedback or interaction with the people that are doing the job day to day. So number 1 lesson, involve your people in the planning process. Get them engaged, solicit their feedback, and hear what they have to say.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
This doesn't mean that every decision in your company needs to be made by committee, but you do need their feedback and understanding of their role at a deeper level to be able to make the right decisions for your company. Know what problems to solve. And I think the reason that I saw this comment and this version of this comment rise to the top this year is this AI first movement that I personally am on a bit of a vendetta to stop.
You don't say.
When companies start to chase shiny objects and look to the tool before they look to the people, we end up in scenarios where we have solutions that don't get adoption, they don't solve real problems, and you don't get the ROI that you're hoping for. And as we see so many companies chasing after the dream of the magic of AI, we have a lot of people in these companies that feel left behind and that their real problems aren't being solved. So if you take nothing else away from this episode, make sure that it is that you are involving your team in your process discussions and solution selection. The second most common comment that I got on this video goes right back to the basics of digital transformation. People always talk about the three things that you need, and specifically in the order of people, process, then technology. And I'll give you two guesses, since we've already talked about people, what that second comment was really driving towards. And it's process. People are clamoring for true process improvement before we implement technology. Going back to this idea of AI first and heading in the wrong direction because we're chasing the technology, the process, along with the people, has to come before the tool.
That makes a lot more sense.
We need to be really identifying how and where we can update our processes, fix bottlenecks, think through more logical ways of completing our work, and then bringing in the technology to enable those people and processes. At its core, digital transformation is about enablement. And if we forget about that and we get distracted by this idea of digital and start chasing that technology, again, we end up in these scenarios where we're not accomplishing what we actually set out to do. So keep in mind that order of operations: people, process, then technology. Lesson number 3 that came from the comments in order of most frequently brought up is tied to that third idea of technology. And it's that AI and technology are not magic. You cannot chase after the technology and hope it's going to make your cultural problems go away, solve all of the process issues, when really all you're doing is putting lipstick on the pig and calling it something new.
You can't fool me.
You have to start with those first two things and then bring in the technology. And while AI is exciting and it has massive opportunity and is going to change the way that we all interact with the world, and truthfully, it already has, but it is not magic. It does not erase all of the issues that you might have within your company. It does not eliminate the need for people and true thought around how you're redesigning your process. And your people want you to know that technology is not magic, and you have to be intentional and have a true strategy behind how you're implementing it.
Well, it's a lot of work, isn't it?
The fourth most common thing that I saw popping up in the comments was that your team also wants you to know that just giving them a training guide or a couple of hours in Zoom to learn the new software is, in fact, not what change management is. Training is a portion of change management, but it is not the entire process. And while we're at it, they also want you to know that if you cut training, you're not going to be as successful with the implementation as you hoped.
That's news to me.
And this comes back to the idea then of what is change management. If training is only a portion of it, what do we need to keep in mind? Well, we've already talked about the importance of people and process and technology, but what makes up a good change management strategy? First, you have to have that vision that I talked about that came from the lessons learned last year. You need to have an incredibly strong communication strategy in place where you are working side by side with your team, telling them the good, the bad, and the ugly so that they understand what's happening within the implementation and can feel close to it. And then one of the other things that you need to keep in mind is how and where you're celebrating small wins along the way, helping them understand the benefit that they're going to get from the solutions that you're rolling out, and really helping them start to understand the what's in it for me in reality. So not just the vision that you're putting out there, the benefits that you're telling them because the salesperson you bought the software from told them that that was going to come, but truly celebrating the incremental changes that you're making throughout the process, the work that's going into the process. Change management is a lot more than just strictly teaching someone how to use a platform. And your team wants you to understand that training is important and you shouldn't cut it, but it's also not the only responsibility that you have when it comes to actually leading the change in your organization. And the fifth and final most common thing that I heard in the comments that your team wants you to know about leading change is that change takes work. Implementing new technology cannot just be outsourced to another team. Even if you have a big consulting company with an army of people coming in to help with the solution implementation, they still have extra work on their plate. They still have a full-time job and this transformation program to be a part of. And you need to plan for that. You need to think through the impact that it's going to have on their day-to-day job, the work that you're asking them to take onto their plate, and prepare for it and plan for it. So maybe that's like something like bringing in temps to help take on some of the day-to-day work so your team can focus on the transformation. Maybe that means designating specific people within the organization to be on the transformation team and have that be their sole focus. Maybe that means a slightly longer timeline to allow for the workload that's going to come with their day-to-day job and this transformation program. However you plan for it, make sure you're planning for it because you can't outsource all the work that has to take place. Those 5 things are what I heard from your employees across different industries, across different software platform implementations. But these trends continue to come about. If you want to be effective at leading change, you need to focus on improving in these areas. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you didn't get into the comments on TikTok and you have something that you'd like to add into the conversation that leaders should be focused in on when it comes to leading change, or tell me as a leader, what's difficult about these? Where do you run into challenges? Where do you need additional support? I'm happy to continue the conversation in the comments and we'll respond to everybody there. But let's keep the conversation going and let's think intentionally about how we're leading change. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. If you like what you saw, be sure to come back on a weekly basis and subscribe for more expert interviews focused on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.